Hey everyone, welcome back to the FPBcast after week 3 of the NFL season, week 4 of the college football season in the books. We're getting to the end of September. October is right around the corner with kickoff for college football and the NFL. And now, Gerry, we're starting to see teams kind of separating themselves, right? We know the have and have-nots kind of in college football. There's been a lot of surprises. The NFL is a little bit murkier because teams that we thought weren't going to be good are good. Teams we thought were going to be really good aren't very good. And then you have, Buffalo running 90 plays and losing to a Miami team. So it's like, trying to make heads or tails of this, but we've got some, evidence now of what's what, at least in college football. We know Georgia's really good. We know Alabama's Alabama. We know Ohio State's Ohio State. But then after that, it kind of gets, how good is Michigan going to be? Can they hold on? Clemson coming out in the ACC, North Carolina State. We'll talk about all that, but let's look back at this past weekend, college and the NFL. Starting in college, Gerry, what kind of really caught your eye? Number 6, Oklahoma goes down to Kansas State. Who saw that one coming? You've actually had a really good game in Winston-Salem against Wake Forest and Clemson, and JMU comes back from a 28-3 deficit to beat App State, which, again, who sees these things coming?
Well, I mean, to me, the college story this week was with all the big numbers, even the Georgias of the world couldn't cover this week. Right. I myself went 9-11 against the spot, even though I went 17-2 straight up. And the reason is, the numbers for teams like a Michigan against a Maryland were just too high. Every once in a while, whether you're Georgia or Alabama or Ohio State, who actually did cover, or Michigan or what have you, you got to give guys a little bit of a blow. You don't want people to get hurt when you're playing at Kent State or whatever. So you pull back the reins a little bit. And, it's hard to handicap exactly how these things are going to go down, particularly this, juncture of the season. To me, that was the big story this weekend in college, as well as Oklahoma losing. I mean, I think they were a little bit of a mirage anyway, given who they played up to this point. Beating the tar out of the Nebraska team, that's basically one step away from Pop Warner right now, doesn't impress me much.
Right.
But, I think there's a lot more to be gleaned this week with some really big matchups against top 10 and top 20 teams. And I think you go from a whole slate of walkovers by and large to like some really good games this week.
Yeah, when October comes around, now you get, you kind of get the cupcakes, the FCS teams out of the way, and now you're starting to get in conference play, right? And so you see the ACC's got a really good slate this weekend, and you got the SEC. Obviously, every game that they play, even if it's other than Vanderbilt, where Alabama covers. So the top 3 teams last week covered, everybody else didn't. And again, like you said, when you've gotten 45, 56 point spreads, how are you supposed to judge that when you've got conference play coming up and you don't want to get guys hurt, like you said? So college football, just like the NFL, and again, who knows who's going to do what. So we do know that this weekend, our game of the week is number 10 NC State at number 5 Clemson. Clemson really kind of separated themselves a little bit against Wake Forest, even though that was an overtime game. The quarterback situation at Clemson has been one of those things. Is it going to be DJ's team? Is he going to be able to kind of take it over, or is he gonna stutter and stumble, and then the freshman comes in? But against Wake Forest, he played very, very well, beat them, and that's a tough team. Wake Forest is not your daddy or your granddaddy Wake Forest team, especially with Sam Hartman playing at home. And who would have thought, going into Winston-Salem is a tough place to play, but they made it that way. And I think Clemson's really got a chance now are they for real? And that's against, North Carolina State, who has 17 returning starters coming back. They were my kind of dark horse pick to challenge Clemson in the ACC. We get a chance to maybe preview who could be the champion of that league.
I think so. I think it's really potentially for a playoff bid as much as it is anything. 6.5 point favorite Clemson at home. You mentioned DJ. I mean, I think he played, an unbelievable game against NC State. A handful of touchdown passes, 350 odd yards.
Yep.
Made all the throws at the end, including the one on the second OT to win it. Didn't show any sort of loss of confidence. Was out there firing the ball, and I like Clemson to cover against NC State at home. I think NC State is a good squad. Don't get me wrong, and I think that'll be a close one. But I think Clemson has found their quarterback and maybe just found their path to the playoff.
Yeah, they got to win here, right? I mean,
Yes.
because they got to win this game because Clemson is not the Clemson it was before. It's not going to get the benefit of that in my mind if you have 2 or 3 ACC or SEC teams, 2 Big Ten teams. Clemson losing, but again, if you're going to lose early. But if they're for real, they've got to beat NC State at home in Death Valley, and that's going to be a big challenge for Dabo Swinney. I do like Clemson as well this week. The 6.5, though, again, it's just, if they're scoring, if they're playing, but it feels like a game, this kind of game could come down to the last possession, like some of these other ones we've seen. I also looking at the slate, Gerry, you look at another ACC game, Wake Forest at Florida State. Florida State finds itself in the top 25 for what seems like forever. They were perennial top 25, top 10 team for years and years and years under Bowden. And now, they kind of fell in some hard times. They're back. They're playing pretty well. You've got Wake Forest. We talked about them and Sam Hartman and the grittiness that they have. That's a game I'm watching. As 22 Wake at 23 Florida State. And Doak Campbell used to be a hard place to play. I don't know if it's that way anymore until Florida State proves they can continue to win. I'm watching that game. I'm also watching number 2 Alabama at 20 Arkansas. Arkansas, lost to Texas A&M in Gerry World Saturday night in a crazy game. Arkansas playing well. I think, in that SEC West, it's Alabama and everybody else usually. But I also am looking at I really like that Kentucky, number 7 Kentucky at number 14 Ole Miss in Vaught-Hemingway Stadium, the Grove there in Oxford, Mississippi. Can Lane Kiffin get these guys fired up against the Mark Stoops Kentucky team? I like Ole Miss at home this weekend.
Oh, the irony, as Vin Scully would say, those are the games that I called out as well. I like FSU at home. I think Wake is licking its wounds a little bit. Got some guys banged up in that, double OT game against Clemson. Bama given 17 at Arkansas. Arkansas did not impress me at all last weekend or even the weekend before in the win over South Carolina. They let South Carolina hang around for far too long. I don't think the quarterback can throw the ball well enough to be, as in as lofty a ranking position as they were when they got up to as a top 10 team. They're probably more like a bottom 20-ish type of team. I think the Tide will take it to them there. You like Ole Miss? I like Kentucky. Getting 6.5 on the road. Lane Kiffin is talking his usual smack, but Mr. Stoops will have the final say on this one. I think Kentucky got a little bit of a scare last weekend, maybe got a little too full of itself, and is going to come out firing on all cylinders this week.
And oh, by the way, and it's not one of our games, but Tennessee beats Florida for the first time, at home. It was a game that Tennessee. Remember, I predicted this earlier in the summer that Tennessee would challenge, but also would be the one to hand Alabama their only loss of the season. So just put that back in the back of your mind.
I would headline that one: Bald Squirrel Finds None.
We'll see.
They tried to give that game away. They had that game comfortably in their grasp. And I actually went to make a sandwich because I thought it was over, and I came back and I was like, holy cats, they're trying to give this one away in Knoxville.
That onside kick, the play that guy made on the onside kick, just stabbing it out of his hand, that was one of the better onside kick plays I've seen. So, but again, Rocky Top, just keep that in the back.
They're decent. I mean, our colleague Mitchell Forty put Hooker in the Heisman watch this week. I think that's kind of fool's gold, coming off of one game a little bit. I think there's too many other talented guys. My campaign is for Brock Bowers for the Heisman. I mean, I think that guy's the best player in college football.
I think he's really good, but you could stand on that limb all by yourself because a tight end's never won, the Heisman. But if Georgia keeps playing like they are, who knows? Who knows? I mean, it's not.
So just because something has never happened before, you sound like one of my college students. Well, we've always done it this way. Well, sometimes you do things a little differently.
Sometimes
tight end for the trophy.
All right. Well, I don't have a vote anymore, so I can't.
Either.
Yeah.
I think it's a coincidence they took it away from both of us.
They took it away from both of us after a couple of really bad years.
I've never been, I don't think, I think I've once not had the winner of the 10 odd years I did it.
There was only one year that I didn't pick the winner, and that was 2013. I voted for Trey Mason, who was a running back at Auburn instead of
No
James.
wonder they took your vote. Jesus.
Hey, he had an incredible historic year running the football, and I think that's what did him in his professional career, because guy took way too many hits. He carried the ball 44 times in the SEC championship game that year and had like 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. This kid was amazing.
He was a good player. I'm just playing.
Really good player. We watched him live in Pasadena at the Rose Bowl that year, Jerry. We had we made it to that game.
That was quite a trip.
That was one of my
on and off the football field.
3 or 4, yeah, off the field, probably more so than on the field. I remember coming off the elevator though. Auburn had just scored. They were going down. I thought the game was over. I had my column kind of set up that they were going to win. This was good. I come off the elevator and Florida State had returned the kickoff back. Next thing I know, they're winning. And in the time that it takes to get out of the press box, on the elevator, and onto the field, the game had changed. That's back when we used to go on the field. Remember, now everybody just stays up in the press box and files. We used to be able to get, not that you can't get on the field, but I don't know how many people go down.
That was because they were used to doing it the way they always did it.
It was also before there was internet, this thing called, get off my lawn. Anyway, let's move on to the NFL. Week 3 in the books. And again, just like, I've seen a couple of tweets, and I'm watching Red Zone all day on Sunday. And they call that time between like 3:30 and 4, like the witching hour. It's like when everything goes crazy, at least this season, when you see people, 2 weeks ago, we had 2 teams come back from 20-point deficits to win. This week we have a Miami team who was one of those teams that was down 20, comes back to beat Baltimore 2 weeks ago. Now they're playing the Buffalo Bills. Everybody's pick, well, not everybody's, but the majority of people's pick to win the Super Bowl. And the way they've looked this year, it's a great pick. They go down to South Beach. Miami has them. Buffalo runs 90 plays to Miami's 40-something, and they lose, and the Bills lose. In Miami, when is the luck going to run out for Tua and the Dolphins? Or are they that good? And this,
I got to admit, like you say, well, when's the luck going to run out? I mean, the fact of the matter is, Tua Tagovailoa has exceeded any expectation I think anyone could have had as a quarterback. I think he's the real deal, and I think not only did they overcome the Bills, time of possession, number of plays, all those things, but the ridiculous punt into the butt of the center that basically, set the table for the Bills to come back and win it. They still win the damn game. Unbelievable. And I think they're the game to watch this week again, going at Cincinnati and your boy Joey B, trying to, keep him from getting win number 2 on the season after their rough start, and get anybody to protect the guy. That would be great.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think Tua Tagovailoa right now is the candidate for MVP.
All right. Okay. They maybe after week 3. Let's revisit this.
Come on. I mean, if Allen is the guy and the Bills are the Super Bowl, team that was crowned in the spring, and he beats them coming off the game he had the week before where he looked like Dan Marino. I mean, I don't think it's that far fetched.
I think you're not far off. You're just enough off to say that, he's got to do it for 17 games.
Well,
Okay.
of course. I mean, but I'm just saying, given, the preseason outlook for the Dolphins was, did they have the quarterback to do anything with these weapons they have, adding Tyreek Hill, for example? And the fact of the matter is he's performed, I think, beyond anyone's expectations. The only thing the question about Tua right now is the concussion thing, because he got slapped around pretty good too. And I know McDaniel sort of poo-pooed the notion that he was potentially going to go to protocol or whatever, but he looked a little loopy after the game. I mean, he gave a pretty good interview for a guy who just got the tire kicked out of him. But.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Was it they're investigating that? The reports are that they're really looking into this. Is he going to be ready to play? Because this is a Thursday night game now. And
the guy who I won't worry about being ready to play anytime is Burrow, because nobody gets sacked the way that kid does, and
but the baller, he's a baller, man. And he shows up and they obviously they beat the Jets, but I think that's what they needed to kind of get back.
Do you and Joe Burrow use the same hair gel?
Mine's a little bit more sophisticated. You like that game of the week. My game of the week, though, is Jacksonville at Philly. Now, I think that's going to be.
Thunk it.
What'd you say?
Who'd have thunk it? I mean, Jacksonville winning by 4 touchdowns last weekend. I know you're like, oh, they're pretty good. Like, I didn't hear anyone saying they were pretty good before last week.
No, and you know, Trevor Lawrence, the #1 draft pick. You know, is he really that good? You know, regardless of you talking about haircut, regardless of the haircut, and you know the flow. I think he's been showing. And if you're saying Tua is, you know, in the running right now, I think Trevor Lawrence has got a shot. If we're judging it by the first 3 weeks, I think Trevor Lawrence is playing pretty well. The Eagles
He is playing pretty well, but he hasn't beaten the same caliber of opponent, I would argue.
I would agree, but I don't think Baltimore's as good as people think they are. I think Buffalo is as good as everybody, but they were getting 90 plays in that heat.
No, I mean, Baltimore's numbers are pretty solid. You know, they're just not finishing.
Well, that's the thing. You got to be able to finish. And one thing that we've seen from Jacksonville is they can finish. Philly, I didn't think.
You don't need to tell me about inability to finish. I'm a guy who's lived with the Detroit Lions for the past 20 years.
Yeah.
Dan Campbell, we shouldn't have kicked the 54-yard field goal. Well, then why the hell did you kick it?
Right.
I mean, I love the guy, but what are you doing?
Choking another one away against Minnesota. And again, you know, finishing there. And I wonder if it's this though, Jerry, you know, that culture of a team. And, you know, I know it's about the Jimmies and Joes, and, you know, and it's, you got to play the game on the field, but there's a thing called culture. And when you're the teams like the Lions, you know, you haven't finished, you haven't been able to like kind of crest that mountain. And I think there might be something to that. You're seeing teams like Jacksonville and Miami being able to get over that.
But I just don't understand. For the life of me. The field goal wouldn't have done anything for you, even if it was good.
Right.
All it does is give them the ball back quicker.
I think, you know, again,
Try to convert the first down, you know, punt, you know, give them, you know, worse field position, whatever. That's just, you know, the basics of game management and coaching. And you can't do that. Like I said, I love everything Dan Campbell stands for, the biting the kneecaps and the crazy talk and the profanity. Like, he's my kind of guy. Come on, man.
I agree with that. But, you know, again, you've got to be able, I think a lot of these coaches get in their own heads and they start thinking, well, if we do this, just play the game, play the next play in front of you. And I think a rookie coach learning, you know,
look at the, you know, Waffle House menu you got in front of you, like laminated, like it tells you what to do.
Right. Does it? I wonder if it really does tell you what to do. If the coaches just, you know, get on that and start scribbling. You ever seen Sean McVay's? He's got like the handwriting of a 3-year-old, and like I don't even know how he reads half the things he's got.
It says get them smothered and covered. That's what it says.
Scattered, smothered, and covered. Exactly. So I like the Eagles to beat the Jaguars, but they don't cover right now. It's a 6.5-point spread. I think this is a little bit too much. I think that game comes down the wire. Jalen Hurts playing really well. That Eagles defense.
There's another Alabama quarterback who,
yeah,
quite frankly, I wouldn't have given the time of day, who's playing great right now and showing that he can do more than just, you know, manage the game and make plays with his legs.
Did you see Mac Jones? Speaking of Alabama quarterbacks, did you see Mac Jones, how he got hurt, and now the spread is up 10.5, I think, against you know, when they go to the Packers come to play, because Mac Jones being out. Now you've got, speaking of another game that looked like a pillow fight between Brady and Rodgers on Sunday night.
What a crummy game for like all the hype, like 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Like, I mean, that game stunk, like almost put me to sleep.
Yeah. Then there was the primetime games, and you know, saw the stat going into last night. It was the primetime games 7-2. The unders hitting 7 out of the 9 primetime games. And again, last night and Monday night with the Cowboys and the Giants, the under.
Well, and you want to talk about not finishing. I mean, the Packers had the ball like 1st and goal to go up by 3 scores, fumbled it away, let Tampa Bay back in any way they could possibly let them back in, and like, I mean, Green Bay is another team that really, I think, has got to be frustrating to be a fan of, just because they've got some, they found a rookie receiver that could connect with Rodgers a little bit against the Bucks in dubs. But I don't know, man. Like, Minnesota Vikings might be the best team in the NFC North, and like, I never would have said that at the beginning of the season.
And they certainly got a lot of weapons with Thielen.
But they skated by a fairly crummy Lions team because of the Lions sort of foibles, much more than the clutch play of Kirk Cousins, which is a sentence I never thought I would say.
A lot of things we never thought we would say so far this NFL and college football season. And I think when we look back, maybe, November, December, as we kind of look back at the year, these are the weeks that really kind of, can you build on it, or was it an abomination? Was it, kind of an anomaly? And I think the proof is going to be in the pudding, especially in college football this weekend, like we talked about, as conference play starts, or at least good conference play. And then in the NFL, as teams start to really figure out who they are. And we'll have it all here at Front Page Bets. For you, stay with us. Gerry Ahern, I'm Mike Szvetitz. Thanks for watching.